A few thoughts I wanted to offer with respect to some things I'm seeing in the comment section. The first is let's talk about deliveries and how NIO is set up this year in 2025 versus last year, 2024, and maybe the viability or realistic side of things if NIO is going to come in with their target of about a doubling or over 400,000, let's say, on the delivery side of things for the entire year of 2025. I have the playlist on screen intentionally. The most recent month and data that we got was from April for NIO, and that was with NIO, Onvo, and Firefly. Firefly having just started deliveries with almost 24,000 for the month. But if we go down to the bottom of the screen, this is actually the single best month we've ever seen from NIO. The end of 2024 in December, they were able to deliver over 31,000 deliveries, and that's between NIO and Onvo, but Onvo had over 10,000 of them. So that was the high point for Onvo and the best we've seen to date. Now, if you want to do a comparison through the first 4 months last year versus this year, last year in 2024, from January through April, I believe NIO had done about 46,000 deliveries. This year, it's about 66,000. But it was from May on last year where NIO had 20,000 and above on the monthly side of things. And so let's see what happens with and starting from this month of May, but I'm actually looking ahead even a little bit further. This is why. I mentioned this in a previous video, and this is, you can access this on the NIO website. This is the most recent SEC filing. It's page 84 at the top. If you look under vehicle manufacturing, there is a timing element that is very strategic and intentional from NIO with the rollout of their products. Here's what I mean. They say, we currently manufacture our vehicles at the F1 and F2 plants in Anhui, China. Our production capacity expansion strategy is aligned with our product pipeline development and sales projections. In line with this planning, our F3 plant is expected to commence operations in the third quarter of 2025. Now, here's where I want to come back now and tie this together, because remember, NIO did over 31,000 on the delivery side without Factory 3. And now, once the second half of the year comes into play and Factory 3 is online, NIO has new products they will be delivering that they didn't have at that time, including the ET9, Firefly, an entire rather new fresh lineup of NIO vehicles, the Onvo L90, and let's just see if we won't, by the time this year is done, see a bigger number from the L60 deliveries than what we saw even back in December, that 10,000 roughly number. Let's see if they can surpass it. I do think this is all possible. I don't think there's anything wrong with the product and the lineup that NIO has. I think it continues to be the challenge, rather, is in market awareness, brand awareness. And this was even referenced by William Li in the most recent earnings, where he said that Onvo only had about a 1/3 recognition compared to the NIO brand. And so even at that stage, although there had been one really good month, the brand still is being known, recognized, and learned about. And as the three brands rolled together, Firefly, Onvo, and NIO, and the NIO DNA becomes more known, even within China, with half their sales, only about half their sales coming from that one small region. I just think there's a lot of room for growth and a lot more market penetration that the company can have across all three brands. This is the other thing I want to briefly talk about. It's been brought up a few times and I think that Atta, the Odd Investor, has done at least maybe 2, maybe even more videos on the idea about NIO delisting. And so this is my response. I actually had a question from someone about this a month ago, and I don't think they saw my response. So here's what I shared, and I'm going to share this again so that I hope each of you will go and listen to what Tom Hayes has to say about it. I said, hi, David. In my response to this question, I remember you asking about delisting about a month ago, but you must not have seen my reply. Below is my response to you back then. Tom Hayes is a high-level professional, which was why I offered his take on it. And he had a Q&A, and I give the timestamp and the video link, which again, I'll share here in the description. So you can check it out for yourselves. This delisting idea with Chinese stocks comes around, it seems like, and Tom was kind of laughing about it, but he also offered his thoughts. And as a high-level professional, I thought, you know what, he's probably going to be able to offer a better explanation or thoughts and with respect to his experience compared to most of us. So I wanted to offer that. Here's the other thing. There are kind of a couple of reasons that I personally don't think that NIO would want to delist. And one of the things that I've shared it in a previous video, the majority of the voting rights are actually controlled by William Li. And I don't know how many people realize that, even though he's not the largest shareholder, I guess it's his call, is the way I'm looking at it, if he would want to do anything different. But this is a video from about 6 months ago, and I'll share this link as well. You know, this I think shows the commitment of William Li and NIO to other folks. In this case, the Formula Student Electric China. And in this video, it was shared how even when NIO was close to going bankrupt as a company, they still sponsored this. It was still important enough to William Li that they sponsored this and held this. And I think that matters if we're talking about things like, the possibility of, NIO doing something which I think, well, I personally wouldn't be happy about a delisting. I hope that they remain on multiple markets. But here's the other thing, if you want to look this up, and this is on, again, the most recent annual SEC filing. It's page 82 if you look from up above. And this is about the NIO Users Trust. And this shows, again, the commitment of William Li. And this is back in 2019 that he set this up. And he kind of breaks this down. There is an altruism, an interest, and it's in other people. And I think there is a dedication and a loyalty factor to others. And I believe that in this case, where NIO has a lot of retail investors, I do think that there is an element with William Li that it matters to him about being loyal to shareholders. Now, in the shorter term, and short term is one of those terms that's different for everyone. But let's say, for example, I love this example because I don't know how many people realize it, but he talked recently, William Li did, about the expense of developing that chip that they came up with. And he said it cost the equivalent of 1,000 power swap stations. Now, that falls in line perfectly with my idea of this as an IDE. I've got it down here, an innovative driven enterprise, and I've talked about it a few times. My choice for this company was recognizing that I believe it is an IDE, and as such, they have to do significant investment, like, let's say, 1,000 power swap stations worth of investment over the course of years to develop a chip that can actually further their growth and profitability down the road. So in the short term, if you're only looking at profitability on the short end of the spectrum and saying, well, I wish they would have just done 1,000 power swap stations instead of developing this chip. Yep, maybe that's right, but maybe that's also short-sighted and not aligned with the vision of the guy running the company, which is, I believe, very much more long-term than a lot of folks are realizing, recognizing. And I think part of it goes beyond it, just the profitability aspect or element. He's looking to create something that truly redefines the future and makes it, as he likes to say, a joyful lifestyle. Blue sky coming. It's all very positive messaging that comes out from the company, and the fact that he maintains control, and he chose to maintain control of voting rights, even though he allowed CYVN to take a bigger share position and investment. I just think those are, again, kind of a nod to, one, him being loyal and dedicated to building this thing out, but also his willingness to bring other folks in and share some of, hopefully, what will be wealth and profits down the road. Anyway, just a few of my thoughts on some of this is, I think there are a lot of different narratives out there. Don't get too hung up in a lot of them. I think that is easy to do, especially with how noisy things can be. But that's also why I personally prefer to stick with the research and dig and kind of nerd out on things, and also just not get too hung up or caught up in all of the noise that's out there. So that's just my take. And if this ends up being a longer than 8-minute video, I will create timestamps to make it a little easier to navigate, because I actually intended it to be a short video. But in any event, thanks for stopping by. Have a great weekend. I'll see y'all again very soon.